Thank you. I'm trying to share my PowerPoint.
Did you ask for Wycliffe to share?
I think it was my computer, maybe being weird. Um, oh, hang on, I'll be right back.
Brother Wycliffe, if you can maybe just have another hymn for us playing in the back.
Um, all right. I'll just go no PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Um, all right. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I didn't have a way to test it beforehand. Um, Hopefully you aren't used to using a PowerPoint every week, but we'll get through it if so. But thank you for letting me join you tonight for this morning for me. I've been with y'all a few times, and it's always been a blessing and an encouragement to you. As we get started, I need a volunteer, so I will volunteer Stephen for this. All right. Stephen, congratulations. You get to play an imaginary game for an imaginary $1 million. So, congratulations. I know you're excited. Uh, might sound silly, but this idea will establish an idea that will like be a foundational as we like carry through our lesson. So, Stephen, have you ever put together a puzzle, like a 1,000 piece puzzle, 500 piece puzzle, anything like that?
I'm not successful even with a 200 piece, but
All
million.
right. Well, hey,
Uh,
this may be a hard challenge, but yeah, it's $1 million. So,
okay,
if I gave you a 1,000 piece puzzle, okay,
yeah.
and you were going to race against me to put that puzzle together, but I'm going to give you an advantage because you said you weren't very good at them. All right.
Ah,
Would you rather have maybe 10 of the pieces already kind of put together, or would you rather have the box that has the picture of what you're trying to put together?
I think we like the box.
Yes, I am
Yeah,
with you as well. I would choose the box as well. I don't know if anybody else has put together a puzzle. I'm not great at them, but I agree with Steven. The
yeah,
first thing I want if I'm putting together one of those jigsaw puzzles is I
yeah.
want to see the
The full
picture. Like
picture.
I want to
Yeah,
see what we're trying to put
to
together.
build.
Steven, thank you so much for playing the game. You won't really put together a puzzle,
Thank you.
uh, but that idea there is what I want us to kind of explore here is that it's helpful in life to be able to see the big picture of things. I had a guy that I used to work with, Siegfried. He um, was born in Germany. So he was a huge soccer fan and would watch their soccer all the time. But he would always record the games and he would only watch the games if his team won. And I always thought that was kind of silly, but to him, he would say, "Hey, we get down 1-0. I say soccer, but football. But we get down 1-0. No worries. We get down 3-0. No worries, because he knew the end result that his team would come back and get the goals that they needed to win. So seeing the big picture is nice, but that's not really reality. In life, we don't get to see the big picture of everything. And the first question I want you to kind of think about tonight is our first principle maybe in our life, we do not see the big picture. I want to share with you a story. I live outside Nashville, Tennessee. I lived here for about 6 years. Before then, I lived somewhere else, and I was working with teenagers at the time in the church. And when I moved here, one of the elders here. His name was Eric McGreevy. He called me, and we were going through the interview process. But he was kind of the main elder that I like talked through to like do all the paperwork, all the logistics of getting moved here and getting settled and all those different things. And we became really good friends. At our church here, we have different Bible classes, and each elder is associated with a Bible class. And he happened to be the elder in the Bible class that I was a part of. I do a lot of with our outreach ministries and our communities, and he's the elder that's associated with the outreach here as well. So him and I have spent a lot of time together. Him and his wife Heather became good friends of ours. One time we had to rush one of our kids to the hospital, and we had called Eric and Heather to come over and watch our other kid. They were just close to us, and we could call them for anything. Well, I was preaching once, And Heather's mom was in town visiting, and she heard Brian Lemasters, and she was like, "Hey, we may be related to that guy." And they were like, "No, he's from Indiana, another part of our country here, and they're from West Virginia, another part of our country, not near one another." And they're like, uh, there's no way they're related, So she started doing some digging to see if maybe our family trees lined up, and couldn't find anything. But from that, my kids started calling Eric Uncle Eric, just as a joke. We would just joke about us being related. Well, I want to show you a picture. Oh, I had a picture, but I can't show it. There's this old time picture of Heather's great great grandparents. And I was having to dig into some family tree stuff for something to find an answer. And I found a link where it mapped out my whole family tree. And I sent it to Eric, and I was just like, hey, just for a laugh, see if there's any connections here. And turns out her great great grandparents are my great great grandparents. So we laughed it away as in like, oh, there's no way we're related, but turns out we are actually related. We're third cousins, is how it maps out to be. And it got me thinking with that is we had been building this friendship for years, completely unaware that there was this bigger story in play and a deeper connection than we even realized at that time. And it also made me realize how much of life is like that. How much of our life is there's connections, or there's things happening in the background that we have no idea of them. I don't know if you've ever had that in your life where you came across somebody and you thought you may never see them again, and then turns out you end up reconnecting with them years down the road, or you thought, oh, this is just a stranger, and one day you end up at church with them. Like so many times in my life, I've had interactions with people, and they ended up re-entering my story of my life later on. Now, I want us to think of for a second here. What do we do when God calls us to act, but you don't see what he is doing? What do you do when God asks you to do something, but you don't see the big picture of what that can help you in life or what that needs to happen? Is there a requirement of your faith for you to have clarity? Is there a requirement of your faith for you to have clarity, for you to see exactly how this is going to benefit your life? Is that a requirement for you to have faith in God? We can ask that question, but if we think about Israel, there was a time in their life where they were forced in a very tangible way to answer this question. And it comes in Joshua chapter 6. We're going to spend some time in Joshua chapter 6. But before then, I'm going to give you some Bible questions to catch us up on the first 5 chapters of Joshua. All right. So it's okay if you get these wrong or right, but it will help us remember them. So you just kind of keep track of yourself. If you get these right or not. So, question number 1, who was Israel's leader after Moses? Was it Jesus, Saul, Joshua, or Aaron? The correct answer is Joshua. Joshua was the leader after Moses. Who was Joshua? Was he just chosen 2 generations after Moses? Was he Moses' assistant? Was he a priest under Aaron? Or was he a son of Moses? Who was Joshua? All right, the correct answer is he was Moses' assistant. He was Moses' assistant. All right, third question. Who helped the spies? Earlier in the book of Joshua, they send some spies to Jericho there. Who helped the spies? Was it Reuben, a blind man? No one helped the spies. Was it Joshua, or was it Rahab? Who helped the spies? The correct answer is Rahab. Rahab helped the spies. All right. This one may be a little bit trickier. What was built at the Jordan River? Was it a memorial of 12 stones? Was it a cross shaped memorial? Was it a bridge made with 1 stone per person that was there? Or was it a memorial like the Ark of the Covenant? The correct answer is a memorial of 12 stones. All right, this one is probably one of the harder ones, all right? what two commandments were kept um, in the book of Joshua? Was it, and two of these are correct, so you get two out of the four. Was it the Passover? Was it that every male was circumcised? Was it that the high priest was installed? Or was it that they offered sin offerings? The two correct answers, this is a tricky one, is they observed the Passover and every male was circumcised. All right, final one. This is at the very end of chapter 5 before we will pick up in the text that we're going to read. When Joshua was by Jericho, who did he see? Was it the commander of the Lord's army? Was it Rahab? Was it Moses? Or was it a burning bush? The correct answer is the commander of the Lord's army. And that concludes chapter 5. So I want us to pick up and we're going to read a decent amount of Joshua chapter 6. But first, I'm going to read just the first two verses. It says, Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have given Jericho into your hand with its king and mighty men of valor. Now, when I see that, when it says, See, I have given Jericho into your hand, you know, what come next is kind of surprising because it doesn't match that on the surface, right? Like if you were just reading through this story and it said, See, I've given Jericho in your hand, you would probably think, oh, the city, God in that next moment destroyed the city or went ahead and took care of it all. But that's not what happens. There's a pause, there's a little bit of delay in that, and it requires their obedience. See what is read in verse 3 through 5. God says this, You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets, and when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, everyone straight before him. I think that is interesting. And it makes me ask the question, why? God told him, I'm going to give you the city into your hand. And then the following instructions for their obedience is for 6 days, they got to march around the city one time. And then on the 7th day, they're going to do it 7 times. Answer this question to yourself. Was it necessary to accomplish what God was going to do? Physically, did they have to march around the city for God to have the power to knock down the walls? I would say no. God didn't need them to march around the city for him to get the power to be able to knock the walls down. So I wonder what those 7 days, what was the purpose of those 7 days? What did God have in mind for the people when he said, You're going to march around the city one time for 6 days and then 7 times on the 7th day? Let's keep reading. Joshua chapter 6, verse 6. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant and let the 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, Go forward, march around the city, and let the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord. And just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets with the ark of the covenant of the Lord following them. And the armed men were walking before the priests, and they were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark while the trumpets blew continually. Verse 10. But Joshua commanded the people, You shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout. So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once. And they came into the camp and spent the night in camp. So we see in this text that Joshua told them to do exactly what he was told. Uh, and they trusted Joshua. He's their leader, and they do what Joshua said to do. They march around the city without talking, and they do it. And when they get back into their camp that night, Um, they've accomplished day one. Now, I wonder what dinner looked like that night. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Your leader, Joshua, tells you to march around this city, and you do it without talking. I don't know. Is it hot during the day? How far do they have to walk for sure? I don't know, but it's not a short walk. And you sit around the campfire, and does it take a minute? Does it take an hour for somebody to say, what was the purpose of that? Why why did we have to march around the city? What what good did that do? But they go to bed in day two. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the seven priests bearing the seven trumpets of the ram's horns before the ark of the Lord walked on. And they blew the trumpets continually, and the armed men were walking before them, and the rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the second day they marched around the city once, and they returned to the camp. Day two, they march around the city, and they get back to their camp. Nothing changed. Nothing has happened other than they got up and they marched around. Day three, they wake up. They march around the city. Still, nothing happens. I wonder if on that third day, you wake up from your tent and just imagine for a minute, you look over. Maybe your 12-year-old child, we'll call him Benjamin. That sounds like a good Bible name. Benjamin wakes up. He's 12. He looks at you and he says, Dad, why are we marching around this city again? Why? What good is this doing? And in that moment, the only answer I feel like I could say to him is well, I don't know, but God has asked us to do this, so we're going to do it. And that day they get up and they march around the city and they come back. Day four, they wake up, they march around the city and they come back to camp and they go to bed. Day five, they wake up, they march around the city, they come back to camp, they go to bed. Day six, 6 days, they get up, they make this long trip around the city, and they come back to their camp. Still, no visible change. Their goal, what they need to do is they know they have to defeat this great city, Jericho. But what good is this doing? They were obeying God, but there was no visible evidence that it was working. They were obeying, but there was no visible evidence that it was working. It's not like after day four, they start seeing some cracks in the wall or a couple bricks start falling down. And day five, they do it again and more of the bricks fall down. And day six, they get some more encouragement because they see the hand of God at work and they know, okay, this is worth it. 6 days, they march around the city with no change. Tonight, you may be on day six. You may feel like you're on day six. You look around and you see no fruit of your faithfulness. You've been carrying the same burden day after day with no change. You have been fighting the same temptation and you just want it out of your mind, but it doesn't seem to go away. Or maybe you are continuing to show up for a friend, or you're a caretaker or another family member, and it's faithfulness that rarely will be noticed or seen by other people or celebrated by anyone else, but you continue day after day to care and do hard things. Or maybe your day six is more about the people you pray for, you mourn for, you wrestle with how to reach them, to love them, and yet your greatest fear is the reality is that they still won't be near God. Who is your day six person right now? Who have you been praying for, trying to love, trying to reach, and yet you see nothing happen? My plea to you is don't stop on day 6. We can be faithful when we don't see results. Spend a moment with me looking at Galatians chapter 6, 9 and 10. It says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, especially to those who are the household of faith." Most of us, I don't know about you, but I would imagine most of us are not marching around walls right now like they were in Joshua chapter 6. But we are called to love people, to serve people, and to share Jesus. And that can be tough. We can be obeying God and see no visible evidence of that fruit. You may have conversations with a coworker and pleading with them to consider reading the Bible or to have faith, and it doesn't seem like that conversation is really going anywhere. You may be inviting people to come join me for worship, and you keep getting told no time and time again. You care and you pour out your heart for other people, and it just doesn't seem to make a difference. Life, obedience, sometimes can be very tiring. And at some point, you may start wondering, is any of this actually making a difference? Is anything that I'm serving and trying to do in life and just week after week and day after day, and it doesn't seem to really be making the difference that I hope for? Like, do I keep going? I want to share with you a story. It's a true story. There was a lady here at one of our universities. It was her senior year, her final year of school, and she was studying to be a pharmacist. But she had a final presentation, and she did not like public speaking. She was in the library preparing for this the night before. A young man approaches her and asks her if she wanted to pray. He could tell that she was worried and that she was stressed, and she had like her neck would kind of get red when she was like flustered. So he walked up to her and said, "Would you like to pray?" Normally she would say no, but she was so stressed and so overwhelmed, she just said, "Why not?" And the man prayed with her. And in that moment, she felt God in some odd, way of explaining it, just felt a peace that came upon praying about it. And the man gave her an easy to read Bible with Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 on the front. She asked him, she said, "Sir, what church do you go to?" And he said, "Hey, that's not what's most important right now. My encouragement to you is for you to read this Bible, and the text of the New Testament will tell you what to do. Just read this Bible." She never saw that man again. Doesn't even recall if she got his name. But that next day, she went to her presentation and she felt a peace about it from that experience. So much that she was like, "You know what? I may read this Bible." She came from a family who believed in God, but didn't fully practice their faith. They maybe would go to church a few times a year, but she had never read the Bible, had never really had a relationship with God, even though she wasn't against him and believed that he existed. But she opened up that Bible and she started reading that New Testament to see what it would say. And she liked it. So much so that she started exploring some other ways to understand it. And she had this radio program that she could get by the Churches of Christ that their big thing was, hey, we just want to do what the Bible says, and we're going to study it, and we're going to try to apply that to their lives. And she really liked that. And that's what that man had told her is focus on the text. Let the text teach you. And she decided, you know what? I think I may try to find a Church of Christ in my city. And that Sunday, she went and walk through those doors of that church. She decided she wanted to know more about God. I, this story matters to me because those doors that that woman walked through were the same doors that she would later carry me through after I was born. That lady is my mother. And it's the same doors that I would walk through when I became a child of God and was baptized into Jesus Christ, and the same doors that my brother and my sister would also become Christians. The same doors that she would then go on to teach her sister about the gospel. And I wonder about that man at the library who never saw and spoke to her again. Was that the last day he shared his faith? Did he go back to his house tonight and say, "What good is this? I never see any fruit of the awkwardness that I go through to try to share the gospel with other people. I talk to these random people in public. Do they ever actually read these Bibles that I pass out? Oh, if I could tell him the stories that, sir, that woman's son will one day be preaching the gospel to people in another country. If I could tell him that her grandchildren have became Christians from my brother. If I could tell him that, oh, that woman would go on and do mission work in Belarus. If I could tell him the stories that came from that one conversation, I know with all my heart that he would never stop sharing his faith. But I don't know how much fruit he ever saw. And it gets me to think about my own life. Am I willing to have faith beyond what I can see? Do I trust that God is working behind the scenes and in ways that I may never see the fruit of that? Here's what I want you to hear and believe tonight, that God is doing more through your faithfulness than you will ever get to see. God is doing more through your faithfulness than you will ever get to see. In Joshua chapter 6 and verse 20, the walls end up coming down on that seventh day. When the people obey, they march around the city, they shout, and the walls come down. And I don't know if what you're trying to do will be accomplished. But what I do know is we serve a merciful and loving God who is at work today and will continue to be at work until the return of Jesus. So, my plea to you is let not your faithfulness be measured by the fruit that we see. Let not our faithfulness be defined by what we understand, even. But let our faithfulness be driven by knowing that there is a resurrected Jesus. So I will live by faith, not by sight. When life seems overwhelming or unclear or too hard, remember you don't have to see the big picture, the full picture to take the next step, to take the next faithful step. I'll say that again. When life is hard, when you feel like you're on day 6 and you want to give up, remember you don't have to see the big picture to take the next faithful step. God has not left us alone or unequipped. He's given us prayer that we can come before his presence at any time and be reminded that he cares for us, that he's walking with us, that he's working in our lives, that we get to bring our burdens and our cares to him. He has given us scripture that we get to open up and we can see year after year after year of God's faithfulness to his people. That, yes, life is hard and he's told us it's going to be hard, but yet another blessing we have is we have the hope of eternal life, to know that one day after our life, we can have rest. And then also the gathering of believers. Tonight, this blessing to know that we are not the only ones that are striving, that are working hard for the gospel, but we are surrounded by other men and women who believe that Jesus Christ is the risen Savior, and we are going to live our lives for him. Tonight, as we close, I want you to listen to these words how Jesus describes the kind of people we are called to be. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Church, this week, let us be people that are lights in the world. Let us be people that walk not by sight, but by faith. Tonight, if you are hurting, don't leave this Zoom call without sharing that with your brothers and sisters. People care for you. We are here to walk with you, to pray with you, to share in one another's burdens. Let's now have our invitation song.